Before we get started, we just want to say thank you to Viltrox for sending us the lens for review. But we're not paid to say anything besides our own opinions, and Viltrox does not get to see this video before it is published. Let's get straight to the point. The Viltrox 33mm T1.5 MFT lens is for micro four thirds cameras like the BMPCC4K, GH6, GH5, Z-Cam, and the Olympus cameras. We're using this lens with our favorite A camera, the BMPCC4K. Let's talk about the most important thing of a lens, image quality. The image quality of this lens is great, sharp with good contrast. It is definitely not clinically sharp like a photo lens, and I much prefer this than an overly sharpened image for videos. I hope you enjoy the sample footage that we filmed using this lens in downtown Vancouver on a nice and sunny day. I know it also depends on the camera, but using this lens with the BMPCC4K produces very smooth and not photo-like 3D pop images that I really like. To be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of super 3D pop in videos, and this lens has a very smooth transition, which is awesome. The minimum focus distance of the Viltrox lens is very impressive. You can focus on about a foot away from the lens, and that's very close for this kind of focal length. The only thing you need to be careful of is only a small part of the image will be in focus if you are that close and the lens is wide open. One very surprising thing about this lens is the not bad at all chromatic aberrations. I didn't see much of it even when I was filming very high contrast scenes. Usually a budget lens will do pretty badly with a lot of purple and green fringing on the highlights, but this lens is doing a very good job controlling it. I also didn't notice that much vignetting when using the Viltrox 33mm, even when it was wide open at T1.5. I personally don't mind vignetting since I film at narrow aspect ratios a lot, with black bars at the top and the bottom anyway. Some people might even add vignette as a creative choice in post. At 33mm, which is around 66mm full frame equivalent, I didn't notice that much distortion, which is pretty normal because it is not a wide-angle lens anyway. Even if there's a pincushion distortion, I don't think it is so bad that I can notice it. When it comes to focus breathing, for some reasons, this lens does have it. You will notice that the frame of the image zooms in and out when you're pulling focus, which is very surprising because I thought one of the major focuses of a Cine lens is to not have focus breathing, but there is, not much, not too distracting at least. One very important thing about the Viltrox lens is the amount of flaring when there's a bright light source. I was very surprised because if you have the sun pointing at the lens, almost the entire image gets washed out. And I've never seen something as strong as this on my other lenses. So you really have to be careful and make sure you use a matte box or lens hood to block light sources from shining directly at the lens, or else you will have images that are unfixable in post. When it comes to the low light performance of this lens, in here we are filming with the BMPCC4K at ISO 3200. The lens was wide open at T1.5, but it is still not that bright in terms of low light performance. I have a lamp light up at the back, and you can see that it is still not super bright when it comes to getting light into the lens. So T1.5 on this lens for some reason is not as bright as I expected. The bokeh of this lens is actually surprisingly good. As you can see here in the center of the frame, the bokeh ball is really nice and round, and there is just a little bit of a halo around the bokeh ball, but nothing too busy, no onion rings, and there is not that much of texture inside the bokeh ball, which is awesome. And when you move the bokeh or the light source to the side of the frame or the corner of the frame, it turns into a little bit of like a lemon but not really cat eye kind of effect, which is really surprising because a lot of budget lenses usually they will have a really heavy cat eye effect once you move the bokeh ball to the side by a little bit, but it's still quite round. This was shot at T1.5 wide open, so the bokeh balls are really nice on this lens. When it comes to the design of the Viltrox 33mm, it is extremely tiny. This is definitely the smallest Cine lens we have ever used on our cameras. Micro Four Thirds Cine lenses are usually very small already, but the Viltrox one is almost as small as a photo lens, which is very cool. The biggest benefit of having a small lens is, of course, you can have a much smaller setup, especially if you pair it with a mirrorless camera like GH5 or GH6. Also, you can pretty much carry the whole set of lenses with different focal lengths all the time, which is awesome. Even though the lens is small, it doesn't mean that it is cheap. It is fully made of metal and there is a very satisfying weight to it, so you won't feel like you're using a cheap plastic lens and your camera setup will not be overly light. However, one downside of having a super tiny lens like this is when you are trying to pull focus. The focus ring is very tiny to hold on to, and it can be a problem if you have bigger hands. Also, the focus throw of this lens is really short compared to other bigger Cine lenses because of its size. It is less than 180 degree and usually a Cine lens has more than 270 degree of focus throw. A short focus throw can make it harder to have smoother focus transitions because you have to be really careful when pulling focus. A micro adjustment can create a much bigger focus movement compared to lenses with longer focus throw. Another cool thing about the design of the Viltrox 33mm Cine Lens is the marking on the lens. They are very nice and clear and they somehow manage to print markings on both sides of the lens when the lens is this small, which is very impressive. Having markings on both sides of the lens is not that common on budget Cine lenses, and it is a very useful feature if you have a camera assistant working on the other side of the camera. Both the operator and the camera assistant can now see the markings. The only weird thing about the markings is the difference in unit on both sides of the lens. The markings on the operator side is in meter and the markings on the assistant side is in feet. Like, why? That's it. Those are the thoughts on the Viltrox 33mm T1.5 Cine Lens for the Micro Four Thirds system. Overall, we really enjoy using this lens because of its image quality and design. You just need to be ready for the flaring issue. Getting a set of tiny lenses like these ones can be a great choice for a lot of setups. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. What kind of Cine lenses are you using? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.